After testing nearly every other platform out there, I can definitively say that the ThinkorSwim platform is the absolute best, at least in my opinion. It offers an insane amount of features, customizations, and tools that just aren't available anywhere else. However, this does lead to a platform that can be a bit confusing to learn and use when you're first getting started. So in order to help with that, today I'll be doing my absolute best to break the platform down as simply as possible and hopefully leave you all feeling a lot more comfortable using and trading with it yourself. Now, beginning with actually downloading the platform to your computer, you can do so by logging into your regular TD Ameritrade account and then heading up here to the Trade tab. From that Trade tab, we can actually see a nice little drop-down menu pop up down below, and all we have to do is find the Trading Platforms window and then select ThinkorSwim down below that. From there, we can see the ThinkorSwim window pops up with a few different pictures down below of what the actual platform will look like on our computer. Now, all we have to do is actually scroll down this page just a little bit and actually find and click on that big green download button. Once you actually do that, you're just going to need to run through the actual installation setup process. It's going to ask you where you want to download it, who your provider is, which is TD Ameritrade, and then what language you want it in. Once you actually finish the actual download process and get it installed on your computer, from now on, you're going to have a little green ThinkorSwim icon somewhere on your desktop. So from now on, in order to access it, you'll simply need to find and click on that icon and then type in your same user ID and password that you normally use. Once you're actually done with that, and after getting logged in for the very first time, you're going to see a screen that looks a whole lot like this. You can see here that there is a lot going on, a lot of flashing numbers, but as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be going through this one step at a time to make sure you guys really know what you're doing inside of here. Beginning with the general navigation of the actual platform, you'll first notice that your settings menu is in the upper right-hand corner and it's labeled Setup. We'll touch on this later, but this is where you guys can change the overall appearance of the platform, set your order defaults, set your notification settings, and some various other settings that you guys may need to adjust later on. Looking just to the left of that, you'll also see an account button, which is where you guys can toggle through your multiple accounts if you have more than one. So going through that for just a second, if we were to come up here and click on that accounts tab, you can actually see I have two accounts in this paper money version of ThinkorSwim. So looking there, I have a margin account as well as a retirement account. In my case, let's say I wanted to flip over to the margin account because I wanted to trade in that one. I'm just going to come up here and select it. But moving off of the accounts tab, looking right below that, you can actually see your main navigational tabs. That'll include monitor, trade, analyze, scan, and a few others just to the right of that. These tabs are how you're actually going to navigate around the platform and access the various tools inside of here. Looking right below that, we can actually see our main platform window, which is where all of these tools will be displayed once we access them. And then finally, on the left-hand side, you can see your side panel, which is a set of customizable gadgets that just show you useful trading information. Now, looking at that main platform window, you can see here that the page we're looking at right now is the home page, and it's one that I doubt you guys will ever see again. So let's go ahead and skip past this and head over to the monitor page. Now, the monitor tab is basically a breakdown of what is going on in your account right now. So what orders do you currently have working, what positions do you currently hold, and how are those positions doing? Working from top to bottom, if we look up here at the top and click on working orders, this is where we could see if we had any current open and working orders to buy or sell something right now. Now at the moment, I don't actually have any current working orders, but if I were to come down here to the filled orders, once opened, you can actually see I did have an open order to buy an option contract, and since it is a filled order, it means I already did buy this contract. Looking below the orders window, you can actually see all of the current positions that I hold in this account. So looking down there, you can see I've got 100 shares of American Airlines, I've got 100 shares of Facebook, and 100 shares of SoFi. You can also see that I have a position on Microsoft, but at the moment it is a blank line. That tells me that I have an option contract on Microsoft. So if I were to click on that, I can actually see what I'm currently holding in here. So looking here, you can see I've got one of the 15 July 275 calls on Microsoft. Now, looking here on this monitor page, you can also see the price that I bought these shares for or contracts for. You can see the current price for those shares or contracts, which is the mark price. You can see the mark change for the day. So basically, how much is this stock up or down for the day? Then to the right of that, you can see your P&L open and your P&L day. Now, P&L open is how much you are up or down since you actually bought this position. So let's say last week I bought one share of Apple for 100 and currently it's trading for 150. Well, then my P&L open would be $50. Now, P&L day, instead of being since you opened the position, is just from yesterday to today. So using that same example as before, I bought one share of Apple for $100 1 week ago. But let's say yesterday it was trading for 140. That means my P&L day would be $10. So overall, I'm up $50 on this trade, but I'm only up $10 today. Now, these columns can also be customized to include whatever information it is that you guys like to see, and to do that, you simply click on the gear icon on the far right-hand side. From there, you're going to get a little menu pop up with all the different columns you could add to your window. Now, in my case, I am actually perfectly happy with all of the columns I currently have. I don't think you guys need to change this right now, so let's just go ahead and hit OK. Now, besides just using this screen to actually monitor your open positions, you can also use it to manage your positions. So let's say later down the line you decided to sell one of your stocks, and in my case, let's say I wanted to sell American Airlines. Now, later in the video, I will show you that there are actually several different ways to do what I'm going to show you, but from right here on this screen, if I wanted to sell American Airlines, I would simply right-click on it. From there, I would then get a nice little pop-up window come up, and I would simply have to click on Create a Closing Order, then come over here to the right. Looking through this, it might seem a little bit confusing, but all it's doing is creating an order template. For you guys, if you're first getting started with this, just always click on the very top line. So right here it says sell 100 shares of American Airlines, and I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Now, as soon as I did that, you can actually see it takes me to a completely different window. It actually takes me to the trade window. If I were to actually look towards the very bottom of this window, I can actually see my order ticket to actually sell those shares of American Airlines. So looking here, you can see it is a red line because I'm selling, and looking left to right, what it's saying is I want to sell 100 shares of American Airlines with a limit price of $15.79, good for the day. Now, of course, you guys can edit these order tickets however you see fit. So let's say, for example, I only wanted to sell 10 shares of American Airlines. What I'm first going to do is come over here to the order quantity, go ahead and double click on that and change that from 100 to 10. Once I'm happy with that, if I wanted to change the price that I was selling these shares for, I could of course come over here to the price box, go ahead and click on that, and I'm going to change this to, let's say, $20. So what I'm essentially saying is I only want to sell these shares if they go up to $20 a share. If I were to look a little bit further to the right, I could actually change my order type as well. Now, currently I'm using a limit order, meaning I only want to sell these shares for this price or better. But if I wanted to change that, I would simply click on the word limit here, and then I can see all of the other order types available down below. Looking here, you can see there are quite a few: market, limit, stop limit, trailing stop limit, market on close, and limit on close. Now, I touch on all of these in a separate video, but for those of you getting started, really the only three that you're going to be using are going to be market, limit, and stop. For those of you not super familiar, a market order simply means I want to buy or sell these shares immediately, and I'll take whatever the current price is. Just get me a fill right away. So if I were to actually come down here and select market, you're actually going to see the price box disappears. I no longer have the ability to specify a price. Coming back over to the order types, if I were to select a limit order, we kind of already discussed that. That means we only want to buy or sell these shares for a specific price. So in the case of American Airlines, I'm saying do not sell them at the current price, $15.78, only sell them if it goes up by about $5 a share. On the flip side of that, you could place a buy limit order, saying I only want to buy 10 shares of American Airlines if it drops down to $10 a share. Now, the other order type that you guys might use when you're first getting started is going to be a regular stop. So right here, it just says stop, and this is a stop market order. Now, generally, when you guys are first using stops, you'll be using them to get you out of your positions before you lose too much money. So in my case, let's go ahead and click on that. And let me say for this example, I wanted to get out of my 10 shares of American Airlines if it ever dropped down to 10. So basically, I'm saying do not sell these shares right now, but if American Airlines ever drops down to $10, I want to get out of it because I don't want to lose any more money. So what I could actually do here is go ahead and highlight this number and change it from 20 to 10. So again, this order ticket would not fill right away. It's only going to fill if American Airlines drops another $5.73 a share. Now, if that were to ever happen, American Airlines drops down to $10 or lower, my order would trigger a market order to go out there and sell my 10 shares. Now, at the moment, if we were to look a little bit to the right, we can see it is marked as a day order only. That means if American Airlines does not go down to $10 or lower today, I just want to cancel this order. A day order is actually only good until 4 p.m. Eastern time. So for those of you on the East Coast, that's 9:30 to 4 p.m. If we were to actually flip that over, if I were to click on the time and force box here, you'll also notice a good until canceled option. Now, GTC simply means if this order does not fill today, try again tomorrow. If it doesn't happen tomorrow, try again the next day, and so on until it either fills or until we come in here and cancel it. You'll also notice right below that is an EXT option and a GTC EXT option. Those two are actually not available for stop orders, but instead are used for limit orders. That is how you guys can actually place trades in the pre and post market if you wanted to. At ThinkorSwim, the pre-market begins at 7 a.m. Eastern Time and ends at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So if we actually wanted to trade in the pre or post market, we could of course change this from day to EXT. We would then come up here and change this from a stop order to a limit order. Then looking through my order ticket right now, what I'm essentially saying is I want to sell 10 shares of AAL if it ever goes up to $20 a share today, including the pre-market and post-market as well. So now that I'm happy with that, I would simply come down here and select confirm and send, that big green button. Go ahead and click on that. From there, it's going to give me a little confirmation window just confirming everything we just did on the previous screen. So right here it says I want to sell 10 shares of AAL at a limit price of 20 bucks, good for the extended session. Since I do want to do that, I'm going to come down here and hit send in the lower right hand corner. Once we do that, if we actually come back up here to the monitor tab, remember the first tab up at the top, we can now actually see that we do have a working order. So right here I have an order to sell those 10 shares of AAL at 20 bucks. This page is also where you guys can come to cancel or edit working orders. So let's say later down the line you guys change your mind. You no longer want to sell these shares for 20, you actually want to sell them for 19. So what we could do in order to actually change that is come up here to the order ticket and right click on it. From there, you're going to see a big drop-down window with a bunch of different options, but all we have to look at is either cancel order or cancel/replace. Cancel order kind of speaks for itself. That's just if you wanted to outright cancel the order, whereas cancel/replace is synonymous for edit if we wanted to change something about this order ticket. So in my case, I wanted to change it from 20 to 19, so I'm going to go ahead and click on cancel/replace here. I'm then going to get an order ticket just like before, and I'm just going to change it from 20 to 19. I'm then going to come down here and select confirm and send this new order ticket out there. If we were to come back up here to the monitor tab, you can actually see my brand new order ticket to sell at 19. And if I were to come down here to canceled orders, you can see that the $20 limit has been canceled. So again, this monitor page is really going to be used to track what is going on in your account right now and then manage those positions. Moving on from that, if we come up here to the second tab at the top, the trade page, let's go ahead and select that. From there, looking down below, you can actually see there are a bunch of tools inside of here. So the All Products tab, the Forex Trader, Futures Trader, Active Trader, and Pairs Trader. If you guys are just getting started with ThinkorSwim, I would completely ignore all of these except for All Products. This All Products tab will allow you guys to trade anything. That'll include stock, options, futures, and Forex. Looking down below here, you can see a little search box, which at the moment we currently have American Airlines in. If we actually wanted to trade a different stock ticker, we would simply need to click inside of there, and let's go ahead and flip it over to, let's say Microsoft, MSFT. Now looking down below, we can actually see what the underlying stock is trading for. So in this case, Microsoft last traded for $271.36, and it's up 91 cents today. You can also see on the same line how many shares Microsoft has currently traded, so 9.5 million. And then if we came over here to this little arrow on the left-hand side, we can see even more info about Microsoft. So looking right here, we can see it's got a 0.91% dividend yield, it's got a PE ratio of 28, and it pays a quarterly dividend of 62 cents a share. Now from this trade page, there are actually several different ways that we could actually place a trade inside of here. The first method is by simply clicking on the ask whenever we want to buy something and the bid whenever we want to sell something. Looking here, we can see the current asking price for Microsoft is $271.35. So if I were to click on that, you can actually see an order ticket pop up down here below. In this case, you can see it is a green line because we are buying shares of Microsoft. Just like before, if we wanted to edit any of this stuff, we would simply click on the box we wanted to change, type in what we wanted to change it to, and then hit confirm and send if we actually wanted to submit it. If I were to instead come up here to the bid price and go ahead and click on that, you can actually see the order ticket changes to a red line because now I am selling shares of Microsoft. If I were to come down here and delete this, the other way I could place a trade on this is actually coming up here to the last traded price and going ahead and right clicking on that. From there, you're going to get a little window pop up and it says we want to either buy or buy custom or sell custom. Since you guys are just getting started with this, let's just go ahead and focus on the buy and sell buttons, which if we click on that, all it does is bring up an order ticket just like before. But I think you guys get the idea. Trading stock on this page is pretty straightforward. Now, for those of you who might be trading more complex products like options, the process is very, very similar. So let's go ahead and come over here and hit the delete button. Then looking down below the actual stock information, we can actually see our option chain. So right here, we can actually see all of the options expirations that are available for Microsoft listed out down below. So right there on the left-hand side, you can see 10 June, 17 June, 24 June, and it actually goes out all the way down to 21 June of 2024. Looking just to the right of those expiration dates, you can actually see in parentheses how many days out that actually is. So right there, 21 June of 2024 is actually 743 days from today. Just to the right of that, you can see the number 100 next to each of these, and that simply means that these are standard options contracts. They all represent 100 shares of stock. Now, finally, looking on the far right-hand side, you can actually see the implied volatility and the implied move for that expiration. So right here, the 21 June of 2024 expiration has an implied volatility of 29%, which is an implied move of $97. Now, once you guys have actually decided which of these expirations you actually want to trade, all we have to do is click on it to actually open up the option chain. So in my case, let's say I wanted to take a closer look at the 19 August expiration. I'm going to go ahead and click on that to open it up. Once I actually do that, we can actually see the option chain open up, and I can see all of the available strikes down here in the middle. So right here, we can see the 265 strike, the 270, the 275, and the 280. Now, for those of you who might want to trade further out of the money, since 4 strikes isn't a whole lot, we could come up here to where it says strikes for and either type in how many we want to see here, or click on the drop-down menu and just select one of these numbers. So now that I've selected 10 strikes, we can see 10 strikes down the middle, going from 250 up to 295 here. If I were to come back up here and instead highlight it and type in 20, then hit enter, we can now see the strikes go from 225 all the way down to 320. Moving on from that, if we actually look to the left of the available strikes, we can see all of the call options. If we look to the right, we can see all of the available put options. You may also notice that the shading is slightly different between the in the money versus the out of the money options. The in the money options have a purplish blue background, whereas the out of the money options have more of a black background. You may also notice the column headers, basically the information that's being displayed in each of those columns, is up at the very top. So right there we can see we currently have displayed the last traded price, the net change for the day, as well as the bid and asking price. If you guys wanted to change those columns in any way, we would simply come up here to the very top where it says Layout Last Net Change and go ahead and select that. From there, we could either select one of the default templates that ThinkorSwim creates for us, or we could hit Customize and add our own columns. Now in my case, I'm just going to go ahead and select Delta Gamma Theta Vega, one of the defaults, and you can now see that each of these column headers has changed. Now, once we actually have the option chain set up the way that we like it, in order for us to actually trade the options in here, it's exactly the same as the stock. So just like before, whenever we want to buy something, we click on the asking price. Whenever we want to sell something, we click on the bid price. So in this very first example, let's say we were bullish on Microsoft. We thought it was going up. If that was the case, let's say we were looking at a call option, and looking down here below, let's say the 275 calls struck my eye. Looking here, we can see they're currently trading for $12.95 by $13.10. Remember, before I told you if we want to buy something, we click on the current asking price, which in this case just flipped over to $13.05. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And just like before, you see an order ticket pop up down here below. This time it's saying I want to buy 10 of the Microsoft 19 August 275 calls for $13 a share. Just like with the stock order ticket, if I wanted to edit any of these things, I would simply click on it and change it to what I wanted it to be. So in this case, let's say I only wanted to buy one contract. I'm going to type in 1 here. Let's also say I only wanted to buy this contract if it dropped down to $10 a contract. So I'm going to go ahead and change that to $10. And then finally, if I wanted to change the time in force or the actual order type, I could of course do that as well. Let's go ahead and flip that to GTC. And then once all is said and done, I could come over here and hit confirm and send, and then get an order confirmation just like before. So right here it says I'm going to buy one of the 275 calls. I'm going to be buying it for $10, which remember is 10 times 100. So this trade is actually going to cost me $1,000. And then if I actually wanted to place it, I would simply come down here and hit send. If I were to come back over here to the monitor page, remember this is where I can actually see that open order to buy that one contract, and you can see here it is currently working. It has not filled yet. If you guys were instead bearish on Microsoft, you thought Microsoft was going to go down in value, we could instead look at buying a put option. So looking down here below and remembering that the put options are on the right-hand side, let's say I was taking a closer look at the 245 puts. Here I can see they're currently going for $6.05 by $6.15. If I was bearish and I wanted to buy that put option, I'm going to go ahead and click on the current asking price of $6.15. Right here it again says I want to buy 10 of the Microsoft 19 August 245 puts, and just like before, I would edit it if I needed to change anything. But that's pretty much the basics of trading options within ThinkorSwim. For those of you guys wanting to learn more about how to do this or create more complex strategies within ThinkorSwim, check out my other tutorial videos. I've made a bunch of them on ThinkorSwim. So moving on from that for a second, let's go ahead and delete this out of here. And the next tab we're going to focus on is actually the charts page. So we're going to skip over just a few and go straight to the charts tab. Looking down below on the charts tab, you can actually see that we are still looking at Microsoft. And if I were to look in the upper left-hand corner, I can see the type of chart that I'm looking at. In this case, I'm currently looking at a Microsoft 1 year, 1 day chart, meaning we're looking back an entire year of time for Microsoft, and each one of these green and red candles represent one entire day of trading. If you guys wanted to change the time period that you're referencing or looking at, you would simply come up here to the upper right-hand corner and select the letter D up here. From there, we're going to see a little menu with all of the default time periods we could go to, or we could come over here to the time frame button and actually make our own time frame that we wanted to look at. Now, for me personally, I'm actually going to head back over to the favorites list, and I'm going to go ahead and select 1 day, 1 minute. Remember, this means I'm looking back one entire trading day, and each candlestick represents 1 minute of trading. Looking down below at the actual chart itself, you'll actually notice that some of these areas on the chart are actually shaded in gray. You'll see here that the pre and post market have kind of a gray shaded background, whereas the regular market session has a solid black background. So looking here on the far right hand side, you can see this is the current day's trading session. Right here is the pre-market session this morning. Just to the left of the dashed line was the post market last night, and then this was yesterday's trading session. If I wanted to zoom in on a particular section, basically get a closer look for that time period, what I could do is actually click and hold down with my mouse and kind of drag and highlight the section I wanted to zoom in on. Once I let go, it's actually going to zoom in on that section we just highlighted. I could also just come down here to the plus or minus icons in the lower right hand corner and just select those if I wanted to zoom in further, or the minus button if I wanted to zoom out. For those of you out there who may want to add studies or indicators to your chart, the way to do that is actually coming up here to the studies icon in the upper right hand corner. Looks like a little sign speaker. We're going to go ahead and click on that. From there, you'll get a little edit studies window pop up, and we can actually see all of the studies available to us on the left hand side. So if I were to come over there and actually start scrolling through this list, you're going to see there are quite a few. I think there's actually like 600 in here at this point. So to simplify things a little bit, if you guys wanted to find a particular study, we're simply going to come up here to the black search box, and let's say we wanted to add RSI. So I'm going to go ahead and type in RSI in there. And then looking down below, we can see all of the studies that have RSI in the name, and I'm actually just going to click on RSI, then hit Add Selected in the lower left-hand corner. Once I do that, you can actually see the RSI has been added to the right, and it's actually in the lower study window. That simply means that the RSI is going to appear below the chart and even below the volume section. And generally speaking, ThinkorSwim knows where it should put your studies, if it should overlay the chart itself, or if it should appear below the chart. But now that we actually have it in our lower study section, if we actually wanted to see what this looks like, let's come down here and select OK. So now looking down here below, you can actually see that I did just add my RSI, or my relative strength index, so we can see it right here. And let's also say you guys wanted to add your simple moving average lines, your 50 versus 200. So to do that, it'll be the exact same process. We'll simply come up here to the studies menu. We'll come over here to the search box, and this time we'll type in simple for simple moving average. We'll go ahead and find it in the list. We'll click on it and we'll hit add selected 2 times because we're actually adding 2 separate lines. Looking over here on the right, we can actually see both of those lines have been added, and actually to the price section, meaning they're going to overlay the chart itself. This still isn't perfect because I did need to edit those lines. So I'm going to come over here to the gear icon of the first one, and I'm going to change that from 9 to 50, changing it to the 50 period moving average. Once I'm happy with that, I'll come down here and hit OK. And then I'm going to change the second one. This one I'm going to be changing from the 9-period average to the 200-period average, typing in 200 here. I'm also going to come down here to the appearance section down below, and I'm going to change the way this line actually looks. So right here, we could actually change how thick the line is, the way the line actually looks, and the color of the line. In my case, all I'm going to be doing is changing the color of the line, and I'm going to change it from this tealish color to, let's say, a goldish color. Again, once we're happy with that, we'll simply come down here and select OK and hit OK one more time. So now looking up here at the chart, you can actually see my 50 versus 200 period moving average lines. Now, besides adding studies to your charts, another really useful feature that you guys might want to use is actually the ability to see multiple charts all at the same time. In order for us to do that, all we have to do is come up here to the square in the upper right hand corner, go ahead and click on that. From there, you can then select how many charts you actually want to see. So in my case, let's say I just wanted to see 2 charts side by side. I'm going to go ahead and come down here and select the second chart to the right of this one. And then you can immediately see a second chart has been added to the right. What I'm going to do is actually come up here and let's say I wanted to look at Google as a comparison. I'm going to type in GOOG and hit enter. So now looking over here on the right, we've got a Google chart, and over here on the left, we have a Microsoft chart. If later down the line you want to get rid of this second chart, we would simply come up here to the squares and then just click on one square once again. But that covers the absolute basics of the charting. Obviously, there is a lot more you can do on here. Basically, the entire chart can be customized, whether it be the appearance, the drawings, the patterns, everything. So if you guys did want to learn more about that, be sure to check out my other tutorials in my ThinkorSwim playlist. There is a ton of information to cover. But moving off of the charts for a second, the next thing I want to focus on is the side panel on your far left-hand side over here. At the moment here, you can see the default layout has my account information up in the upper left-hand corner. This gadget will basically tell you how much money you have to spend, what your account is currently worth, and then what kind of cash balance you're currently working with. Right below that, we can see the live news gadget, which are just recent news articles that have come out here. Just below that, you can see a Trader TV, which I generally get rid of because it's just a TV channel. It's basically CNBC. Then finally, right below that, we can see a nice little watch list of stocks that we're keeping track of. It's important to mention that this side panel is entirely customizable. You guys can add whatever information you find most useful. So in my case, the very first thing I like to do is actually get rid of this Trader TV. So I'm going to go ahead and click on these 3 little lines here and then say delete gadget. From there, I'm also going to get rid of this little chart down below by clicking on these 3 little lines and saying delete gadget here as well. You can now see I've got a nice amount of space to work with down here, so I could actually drag my watch list down and give it a little bit more space. I also have the ability to add other gadgets by coming down here to the plus sign in the lower left-hand corner. And then from there, you can see all of the other gadgets we could add. In my case, I'm actually happy with just the live news and the watch list, so I'm going to go ahead and hit the X button over here on the far right-hand side. But again, that's where you guys could add them if you wanted to. So now looking at my current side panel, again, I've got my account info up at the top, I've got some live news and a watch list. But let's say this watch list is out of date. I no longer want to keep track of these companies. So what I'm going to do is come up here to the name of the watch list and hit test here. I'm then going to come up here and select create a watch list. This will then open up a pop-up window where I could actually name the watch list I wanted to create. In this case, let me just go ahead and name this ThinkorSwim Test. And once I'm happy with the name, I'm simply going to come down here and select save. In order for me to actually start adding some symbols to this watch list, I'm just going to come over here to the left-hand side and click in the little black box below the word symbol. From there, I could actually begin adding the symbols I want to keep track of. So let's go ahead and type in Microsoft first and just start working your way down this list. We'll add Google, then we'll add, let's say Apple, and finally we'll add, let's just say Twitter for right now. But I think you guys get the idea. Creating a watch list in here is pretty straightforward. Now, another cool feature inside of ThinkorSwim is the ability to link together all of your gadgets. So looking to the right of this current watch list gadget, you're going to see a little yellow 2 here. If I were to select that, and let's say I wanted to flip it to a red 1, that now means that every other gadget that has a red 1 is now linked together, meaning if one of them is changed, they'll all change to match. So let me go ahead and use an example, and before I do that, let me go ahead and flip the live news over to red 1 as well. And now looking here, you can see my live news, my watch list, and my little charts page over here on the right are all linked to red 1. So now if I were to change one of these, they're all going to change to match. So let's say I came up here to my chart and I actually typed in square, SQ, and hit enter on the keyboard. You can now see a square chart pops up. And over here on the left, I'm now looking at only news articles that mention square in the article. If I were to instead come down here to my watch list and actually click on one of these symbols, like let's say I click on Google, you can now see that I'm looking at a Google chart on the right, and I'm only seeing news articles that mention Google up here in the top left-hand corner. So this is just a way to very quickly go through your list of symbols and basically check out how those companies are doing without having to type in Twitter 20 different times. Now, these 3 tabs that we discussed in today's video, the monitor page, the trade page, and the charts page, is only a very small fraction of what you can do inside of ThinkorSwim. However, they are the 3 tabs that I think you guys are going to spend more than 95% of your time inside of here using. If you guys want to learn more about the other tabs in here, like the Analyze page, the Scan tab, Market Watch, I have made several other more advanced tutorial videos on those, so be sure to check those out. Now, finally, the very last thing I want to discuss with you guys in today's video is how you guys can change the overall appearance settings and set your order defaults inside of here. So remember, in order for us to do that, in order for us to access our platform settings, we're going to come up here to the setup menu in the upper right-hand corner. Go ahead and click on that. From there, we're going to look down below and select the application settings window. Once this window opens up, we can actually see all of the settings that we could adjust. For this very first one, we're going to be changing the appearance setting for ThinkorSwim. So we're going to come over here to look and feel. Go ahead and select that. From there, looking on the right-hand side, we can then change the overall color scheme of the platform and the font size. So for this one, let's say you guys preferred the light version of ThinkorSwim. So what we're going to do is come up here and select dark and flip it over to light. If I were to come down here and select apply settings, you can now see my entire platform has changed to the light version of TOS. If you guys don't like that, we could of course come back up here to setup, go to application settings, again, come over here to look and feel and flip it over from light to dark and hit apply settings. You guys also have the ability to change all of the color customizations in here. I mean, you could make your platform blue and yellow if you wanted to, or change the way that these colors are represented over here. But for right now, we'll keep it simple. You guys have dark mode, you have light mode. Now, besides that, if you guys want to set your order defaults, we could of course come up here to the setup menu once again, go to application settings. This time, we're actually going to look at the very top menu and select order defaults. Looking on the left-hand side, you can see the order default that you're specifying. So in my case, I currently have stock selected. So looking here, you can see my default quantity for stock is actually 100 shares at a time. For me, let's say I typically only trade 10 shares at a time. So I'm going to change this from 100 to 10. I'm also going to change the order quantity increment from 100 to, let's just say, 1. That order quantity increment is every time you hit the plus or minus button next to the order ticket, how many shares it changes it by. So now that I actually have it set to 1, if I hit the plus button next to the order quantity, it would change from 10 shares to 11, then 11 to 12, 12 to 13, and so on. If I also wanted to change the default quantity for options contracts, I could come over here to the left and select options. I'm then going to change this from 10 to just 1. Now that I'm happy with that, we'll simply come down here and hit apply settings. And now that order default quantity has been set. So if I wanted to double check that, I could come up here to the current price of Twitter, $40. Go ahead and select that. Then come down here and select buy. And now in the order ticket, you can see my default quantity is 10 shares at a time. If I were to hit the plus button, you're going to see it changes from 10 to 11, 12, 13, and so on. If we wanted to double check the options as well, let's go back to the trade page and just go ahead and select any option contract here. And now you can see instead of 10 contracts popping up here, it's only 1 contract at a time. But I think that was a nice little introduction to this platform and why I think it's one of the best ones out there. After today, you should all feel a lot more comfortable with ThinkorSwim and have a basic idea of what makes it one of, if not the best trading platforms out there. If you guys are interested in learning more about TOS, please check out my other tutorials. I've made a video on just about every tool inside of here, but if you guys have a specific recommendation for me, leave it down below. But that wraps up today's video on ThinkorSwim. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your week, and I'll catch you on the next one.